Hello, old chum. If you stick around, you will hear about the Batman. He's kind of a big deal. The Fantasmagorium is pleased to welcome you to Capes, Cowls, and Crusaders, a show about the Batman. Tonight is all about the return of the Batman in the creatively titled Batman Returns. DeVito, Keaton, Pfeiffer, and Burton. A controversial
Walken.
film for its time, and Walken for its time, and a superhero Christmas movie. Rats with wings, do your thing. Hey, today we are super jazzed to have Kat. Hi, how are you?
All right.
And Antiderivative is Jill is here from the Antiderivative Jill YouTube page. How are you doing, Jill?
Wonderful. I'm really excited to talk about this movie because it's one of the few movies that I really enjoyed when I was a kid. Essentially my introduction to Batman. So I never knew that it was a darker take.
Well, and it was
now, obviously.
It was controversial for the time, for sure. I know that there were parents groups that were boycotting because there were Happy Meals. Was it McDonald's or Burger King? But there was
McDonald's.
Yeah, and there was a huge backlash because it was too sexual and dark, and there was, child kidnapping and
yeah, but the innuendo in the movie went over my head. I didn't get it when I was little. I was 8 or 9. I don't know.
Well, and one of the things is that they found parents groups found that the penguin was just too grotesque, which is kind of funny because when I was going through the IMDb trivia page, apparently there's a monkey who delivers a letter to Danny DeVito dressed up as the penguin. They couldn't get the monkey to go close to DeVito in the makeup, which was really gross.
Yeah, that's a testament to Stan Winston, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So did you see it in the theater or did you see it I guess no, you would have seen it on video.
No, I saw it on cable TV. Like whenever it started airing on TV is whenever I saw it. But as a kid, and when I came across it, I keep watching it. And usually I do other stuff while watching a movie. So it's rare for me to find a movie from when I was a kid that actually held my attention.
Oh, for sure. And that's kind of the fun for going back and revisiting these classic Batmans in just that it's been so long since I've actually sat down and given 100% of my attention to them. And so it is nice to revisit. Kat, when did you see Batman Returns for the first time?
I don't remember. I remember being aware of those movies probably first through the merchandising, and then probably I know I saw the Schumacher films before I saw the Burton ones, and maybe early 2000s or late 90s. I have no idea. I don't remember.
Fair enough. I saw the original Batman in theater. I didn't see Batman Returns in the theater. I saw this one on VHS. And then from then on forward, I think I've seen the rest of them in theater. But no, this was definitely the one that I missed in the cinema. And Jill, you made a special request to be here because you're such a fan of this movie. What exactly stands out about it? Is it because it is a Christmas movie or a faux Christmas movie? I don't know. We'll
the Christmas setting is nice. It gives it a nice feel, but I think maybe what I really loved when I was a kid was Catwoman.
No, absolutely. And this would be my hands down. This is my Catwoman.
Absolutely. I was enamored by how she went through her transformation, how she made her own suit, and how even as a villain, she sometimes did the right thing. And, she also didn't do the right thing, but I guess what I mean to say is she's three-dimensional.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And her sort of descent into madness was fantastic. And I always wanted, and I adored it, but the hello there neon sign, and then she smashes it twice and it's hell here. I was just like, this is so badass. This is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then with, how did you rank Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman as compared to the other iterations that we've seen?
I don't have any feelings about any other Catwoman. I probably should love Julie Newmar because she's a 66 Batwoman, so I'll just say her.
Okay.
It's the only one I even think about.
Well, and this is kind of interesting because I just thought of it right now, and I'm sure that everyone's going to groan at the pun, but which is your favorite Catwoman, Kat?
The Zoe Kravitz Catwoman. This
No,
one to me is just like hypersexualized, and I get it. She's a very feminist character, but I wasn't really as sort of satisfied with her arc in the movie. Not in this one, not entirely, but I do like the character. She's not my favorite one though.
Well, and in terms of the villain lineup for this, I've enjoyed it.
Well, right for that, I would say right off the bat, I don't consider her a villain in this movie. I mean,
Me neither. That's why I really like her.
I mean, people keep saying she's a villain, and it's like even in the comics, she's not really an outright villain. She's kind of in this gray area. It's like, yeah, sometimes she steals from people, but she doesn't beat up like lowly good people, you know.
Yeah, she has a purpose for it.
Yeah, and she has a purpose for it. And this one, Max Schreck is the villain, as Phil says in the chat. He definitely is, and he basically kills her. She comes back from the dead and is like, you know, there to make him pay. And and then even Batman is kind of inadvertently using her as well. The Penguin's using her, so I didn't really think of her as a villain so much as another victim of all these other characters in the movie.
Yeah, I suppose.
More of maybe a foil for Batman.
Yeah. Well, and certainly more of I wouldn't even say a vigilante, but definitely a force that is running amok in Gotham. But yeah, I can see that. And she even says, like, I just press stop on the movie right now. And she says, just before she goes to kill Max Schreck, she says, "You killed me. Penguin killed me. Batman killed me." So she has been a victim to the three male leads.
That was another thing I liked when I was a kid, the whole 9 lives kind of thing. Something that I don't exactly buy as reality now, but it was kind of a fun element.
Yes. You know, like when she was she was licked into being Catwoman by all the other cats.
Yeah, the cat CPR.
Yeah,
I thought was entertaining.
Yeah, I heard that they had to put tuna on her to get all those
or
cats.
Or all the penguins in the sewer being able to raise the baby.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and I want to get through more of the cast, but like that was an excellent cameo to enter the movie through, is to have Paul Rubens playing Cobblepot Sr. And the woman who plays the mother was also in Pee-wee's Big Adventure as well.
Mm.
So there are the stable of Burton actors, or the troupe. Also, you get Vincent Schiavelli as the organ grinder. Doug Jones is in there as the Thin Clown, one of the clowns that does the alterations on the Batmobile. And yeah, of course, I don't even know how I forgot.
And you got Andrew Minarski, who went on to play Leatherface in the newer Texas Chainsaw franchise, playing that mayor's son, Chip.
Yes. Well, and I always remember him from Hudson Hawk. I think he played Butterfinger. But that was my my knowledge of it. And he's still, I think his last credit was in 2021. So he's still going.
Mm-hmm.
But then we have DeVito as the controversial, ghastly freak show performer from the Circus Gang. How did you feel about that representation of the Penguin, considering not only Burgess Meredith before, but then after having seen Colin Farrell?
Well, I like it. I mean, I know it's not comic accurate at all, but he's one of my favorite Tim Burton characters, and he does feel more like a vintage Tim Burton character than he does a Batman character. I don't think there's anything unappealing about the character. Like, yeah, little parents are going to bitch about it, but it's like, to your point about the parents complaining about the Penguin being grotesque, that just validates everything the Penguin stands for. It's like, really? You think he's grotesque just because he's weird looking? Well, then fuck you. You know, it's like kind of. That's why I love this character. It's like you could tell that Burton has a lot of sympathy for him, and much like we saw in Batman '89, it's a movie where the villain has the character arc instead of the hero, because Penguin, they're doing like the Moses story with him. You know, instead of his parents sending him down the river for good fortune, they're throwing him away, and he wants recognition for his people like Moses did, and then he wants to be the leader of the people like Moses did, and then when they turn on him, he wants to murder all the firstborn sons like Moses did, and so I love that because it's like, oh, cool, I see what they're doing with this guy's arc, and it's like, but everybody's like vilifying it, hating it, whereas Moses like, hey, you did the same thing over here, you love it. It's like, so I thought that was kind of clever how they put a dark twist on that. But DeVito just chewing up the scenery, wonderful, and the whole outfit, is very reminiscent of Dr. Caligari from the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which is interesting because the first movie had such German expressionist type production design, and you see that also carried over into this movie, not just with Penguin and with the sets, but also with the character Max Schreck, but Christopher Walken is named after the actor who played Count Orlok in Nosferatu, which is another deliberate extension of the whole German expressionist themes. So I absolutely love the Penguin. I don't care that it's not comic accurate. I know that Colin Farrell, obviously, he's much more accurate to the way Penguin's been portrayed probably for the last 40 years, whereas Burgess Meredith is more accurate to the way he was portrayed in like the 50s or the 60s, being, very more kid-friendly. But then the 40s Penguin is a little bit more criminal, darker too. So yeah, Burgess Meredith and Colin Farrell anchor the two sides, whereas this Penguin is a whole thing by itself, but just pure Tim Burton.
Yeah, and
I agree with all of that.
Yeah, as do I. And your keen eye for detail and film references is always appreciated. I like this version, and I do like the way that they sort of introduced him into the early stages of the Batman animated series, and it sort of, I don't know, shaved off the pointy edges, kind of lost the grossness, but still maintained the character design from the Burton film. And it's interesting that you say that Tim Burton obviously has a lot of sympathy for the Penguin. It does feel like you're watching a Tim Burton movie, and then Batman shows up from time to time.
Right, because I was actually taking note of it while watching it today. The first real scene where Bruce Wayne himself, not as Batman, but where he actually gets to talk, isn't until like 40 minutes into the movie. Like, they spend so much time, you have the big action, and you have, the prologue and then the big action scene at the Christmas tree, but then they spend all this time on Selena Kyle introducing her character, and then introducing Max Schreck and Penguin, and they're establishing all the villains before they even bother getting to Bruce Wayne. So you're right. I mean, it's a Tim Burton movie which plays around with Batman characters and gives the other Batman mythos characters their own stories, but Batman just happens to be in it.
Well, and I think I touched on this last week when we were talking about Batman 89, but Tim Burton's sort of philosophy towards Batman is, well, he doesn't really have anything to do until the villains start being villainous. And so he liked to use Batman more sparingly as a response to the crimes of Gotham, as opposed to setting it up as being Batman's story.
Right, and I think that's also part of the problem, is that he's not central. Like, I remember we also mentioned last week how, Batman isn't even the central character in The Dark Knight, but I would argue that he's more central in The Dark Knight than he is in either of the Burton films. In terms of, and when I say Batman, I don't just mean Batman, but also Bruce Wayne. Like, he's not, like, neither of them are very used much in either of these two Burton films.
Absolutely, yeah. And I guess we have Michael Keaton returning as the Bat. And apparently this is the one that he prefers out of the two that he was participating in.
Yeah, and I heard that Matt Reeves and Robert Pattinson also say this is their favorite Batman movie.
Which is interesting, because after going through 89 and then getting to this one this week, I'm balancing them, but they almost feel like great companion pieces. Like, they're both standalone movies. There's not a direct sequel feeling to them. There is reference to Vicky Vale, which is one of my favorite things in any Batman iteration. But this is,
I think that's the only reference from the last movie.
And there's a Joker. There is a Joker reference when Penguin is making his first announcement to be mayor in the office. He's complaining about how the mayor has sat by while Eagle Scouts have turned into crazy clowns, and then housemakers into Catwoman.
Mm-hmm. And yeah. And so, I suppose, but it doesn't necessarily, like, if you hadn't seen the first Batman, you can walk into this without, it doesn't matter, really. But I love Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne in this flick. I think he is my favorite. Well, yeah, like, he's my favorite Batman. He's my favorite Bruce Wayne. Michael Keaton is so charismatic and charming, and he does look like a guy who would have to dress up to intimidate people if he's going to fight crime.
Yeah, I thought Michael Keaton gave a better performance as Bruce Wayne in this movie than the last movie. I thought he was less quirky, which I liked. And then there were times where I thought there was going to be an investigative angle, like when when he first sees Penguin on TV going to find his parents, and he's like, or talking about how he wants to find his parents, and Bruce is like intrigued. He's like, "Oh man, I really hope he finds them." And then like 2 minutes later, in the very next Bruce Wayne scene, he's looking into the red triangle gang, and Alfred's like, "Why are you so certain there's something wrong about this Penguin?" And I thought that was sort of not a very great utilization of that plot thread, because obviously the audience knows that the Penguin is evil. The fact that Bruce Wayne doesn't and feels that he has some connection with him since he's looking for his parents, I thought they could have pushed that further and done something with that was interesting. So to me, it was always kind of a blind side when, like, on the one hand, he's like, "Oh, I hope he finds his parents," and in the very next scene, he's like, "Oh, this guy's evil."
I thought they were, but
Hmm?
I thought that maybe learning about how he was in the circus kind of helped explain how he was taken care of by more than just penguins.
Well, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But still, I like to have that mental image of him being raised by penguins. There's something adorable about it.
Yes, they vomited in his mouth to feed him.
Oh, my stars. Yes, that is probably true. Before we press forward, I just want to say hello to Black Philip Alvarez in the chat. Hey, it's Jill. Yes, it is a Christmas miracle. Phil goes on to say, I remember when McDonald's had the toys in Happy Meals and parents were complaining, not just because it was dark, but yeah, the innuendos from the penguin. Yes. He is a rather horny character for a Batman movie. But yeah, there is groping and filling of voids. And anyway, I can see how the parents would be upset by taking their kids. Because don't forget, this is only the second outing for the movies. And so people are still trained to think of it as Batman 66, or at least they were in 92. So I can understand the frustration. Tim's Talk is here in the chat. Hey, Tim, congratulations on all of your 1,000 of subs. If you want to go check out Tim's Talk, you should. If you're not subscribed, you should. And a lot of great stuff that Tim does over on his channel.
Congratulations.
Phil says, I saw it in theaters opening weekend, referring to Batman Returns. One of my faves simply because of Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman. So sexy. And yeah, I thought DeVito was good as the Penguin. I liked Walken as Max Schreck, who to me is the real villain of the movie. Yeah, totes. And again, I'm sorry I dropped the ball on that one. And Phil says hello to Tim. Tim says hello to Phil. And Phil will be back after the wrestling. And Lemon Pie is here. Hey, Lemon.
Hi, Lemon Pie.
And Black Phillip says, Keaton was solid again as Batman. My only complaint was when he revealed himself as Bruce Wayne to Selina at the end.
That wasn't needed because they already established that they knew who each other they were when they were at the party.
Yeah.
That's true. I thought it was more of like a reveal so that Selina would connect, and it was the unmasking so that hopefully they would be able to have a happily ever after. Obviously, that doesn't happen by the end of the movie. Tom Jr. Jackson is here. Hello, all. Hello, Tom. Thank you for dropping by. Tom goes on to say, I think the ultimate question is this. Do you consider Batman Returns a Christmas film or a film that takes place at Christmas? And do you think the hairpiece that Scott is wearing looks real enough? This is real.
I think it's a Christmas movie because it's about incredibly depressed people, and Christmas time is the more depressing time of the year. And it doesn't have a happy ending, which for a lot of people, Christmas time doesn't have a happy ending.
True. And the final line of the movie is goodwill towards men and women. Merry Christmas, Mr. Wayne. Come what may. So I do.
And Catwoman is saving her last life for next Christmas.
Exactly. Yeah. I liked that little tease at the end with Catwoman coming back into frame, and when they announced that they were going to make a Batman or a Catwoman movie.
I like the juxtaposition there too between the final shot of Batman 89, which is a clear night sky and Batman looking up at the bat signal, all hopeful and everything. And the ending of this, it's all overcast and snowing and foggy, and it's Catwoman looking up into the dark night sky.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that juxtaposition in terms of the mood and how different that is.
Well, and especially considering like the bombastic sort of fanfare that plays at the end of the first Batman, and then it is just such a haunting score for this one. And as you climb and see, like you climb Gotham City, and then the bat signal is lit, and then it's not the triumphant ending to that was Batman 89, but I still really like it. It is a bittersweet, melancholy Christmas movie, in my opinion. Uh-oh, someone's being bat signaled themselves.
Yeah, because it's like you have, on the one hand, Max Schreck, who's just a corrupt bad guy, and his plot line with the power plant is never really resolved. It's just like, he dies at the end, so okay. But the other characters all have something in common. Like Penguin has his trauma and his just bitterness and resentment for being abandoned and thrown in the sewer, which is why he's been killing children his whole life as a way to get revenge on the parents of high society. And then you have Selina, who's been picked on by everybody, like the way Max Schreck refers to her. Sorry, we haven't housebroken our new secretary yet, but she makes a good pot of coffee. And that's also why she rejects Batman's offer at the end of the movie to live happily ever after, because she's like, I couldn't forgive myself because she would be submitting to another man's request, and she doesn't want to do that. And then you have, of course, Bruce Wayne losing his parents, but him dealing with it a bit, a much better, and actually not really resenting his circumstances so much as embracing it.
Oh yeah, and it's not. And I guess we'll revisit the emotional baggage that Bruce's parents bring in the next movie. It seems like you get it in the first one, not in the second one, in the third one, not in the fourth one, and then we move on from the Burton Schumacher verse. But Tom says, yeah, hit that like button and subscribe if you've not yet done so. Please do. Tom says, DeVito as the Penguin is so campy, but fun campy, and just a joy to the screen. Yeah. Pardon me. Tom goes on to say, don't forget the real bird that was in Michelle Pfeiffer's mouth. Now that is going method. I always thought that was entertaining, and I would be afraid of it, just pecking at the inside of my mouth.
Well, she said that the puppets didn't look real enough.
Right. So I'm glad that she did sort of decide to, swallow her pride. Ba-dum-bum. Yeah, I know that wasn't good, but yeah, I thought that was really good. And
the whole scene was a little weird, where the Catwoman's going to eat the little bird, and then the Penguin's going to eat the cat, because we know he's eating a cat. He ate a cat when he was a baby.
This is true. Oh, and I did hear, and I don't know if you. Sorry, Cat.
Which begs the question, like when he ate the cat, it's like, is he a monster? Is he a monster because he's in the cage, or did you put him in the cage because he was a monster?
Or did he become a monster because he was in the cage?
Yeah, exactly.
It's the flippers. He was a monster.
I love how he plays that scene though, when the gullible reporters are interviewing him, and he's just like, like he says, he played him like a heart from hell, and he did, because he clearly has all this resentment, and they're just eating it up.
Oh yeah. Oh, and see, with the plot of the movie, it seems to go all over the place. Mm-hmm. Like it does go from, and as you mentioned, in terms of the Moses allegory, but it just seemed like taking over the town, crime, steal the babies, blow up the town. Like it was going to be a bloodbath if those penguins had been able to launch on time. It was like estimated casualties, 100,000 dead. And it's like, wow. Jeez.
I guess there weren't too many people around the zoo, and so everything was okay.
That's yeah. See,
Batman, the old abandoned zoo.
Yes. Now there was something that I had heard, and this may be apocrypha, but I was talking to Simone from the Fantasmagorium Facebook page, and she was saying that she had heard that initially Max Schreck was going to be Harvey Dent. And they moved it around. So because Warner Brothers bought out Billy D. Williams' contract because they did not want a black Two-Face. And that's the entire reason that Billy D. Williams signed up in the first place.
Was it that was for this movie? Because I thought that Tim Burton would have wanted to keep him on.
Mm-hmm. And so at the end, when Selena Kyle does the whole stun gun kiss thing, that was going to be how
Harvey becomes Two-Face.
Harvey Dent loses half of his face. Yeah. Yes, and I absolutely agree with you, Tom. The most surprising part of the film is Penguin biting the guy's nose off. Yes. And I forget the name of the gentleman who played Josh, but the woman who played Jan was Jan Hooks from Saturday Night Live and Third Rock from the Sun, which I thought it's always nice to see her.
I like the other allegories for that too. Like he kicks off his campaign by doing something horrible in front of everybody, and then Max Struck is just like, "Come on, let's make this guy a mayor." And it's like,
get back to work, everybody.
we have a lot of that today, but a lot of that all the time. But like, did his literal, oh yeah, you bite this guy's nose off, but no, he's great. He'll be a great politician.
Yeah, exactly. I believe they call that an assertive personality, and it's something beneficial in politics. That's what I would spin it as.
Also, he says that he wants to make the world an icebox, and apparently that was almost going to be the plot of the movie. I heard.
We can wait 2 more movies, and then Arnold Schwarzenegger is going to freeze Gotham. Oh, it's so fun. These two Burton directed, and I know it stays in continuity just through the presence of having Michael Gough and Pat Hingle coming back for all 4. But this is an interesting progression, and I'm looking forward to seeing what my opinion of Forever and Robin are going to be as I move forward. Because again, I don't think I've seen Batman Forever in years, maybe even 10. But
I like also how certain plot elements from each of these films creep their way into more modern Batman as well. Like some of the stuff in the 2 Burton films made their way into the Nolan trilogy, and some of the stuff from Forever and Robin moved on as well, which is kind of interesting how they do that. But with this movie, you are right that it is kind of all over the place, because on the one hand, they seem to be setting up Max Schreck as the main villain of the movie early on, but then Penguin's like, okay, I'm going to blackmail you and get you to help me out. And it's like, okay, I feel that that Schreck is going to come around and be the bigger villain at some point, because Bruce Wayne does go to his office and kind of, has that back and forth with him where he's like, I know what you're doing, and I'm going to try and stop you, blah, blah, blah. And yet nothing ever really came of it because they fell back on the whole Catwoman Penguin thing, which I'm not complaining about because I love the Penguin plot, but I was kind of expecting Schreck to come back in a big way, and I was ultimately surprised at the end of the movie when he decides to take his son's place and going down into the sewer because of just how callous and evil that he is.
I absolutely expected Max to do something about Penguin because he blackmailed him. Because at one point he says about Catwoman, if she tries to blackmail me, I'll drop her out of a higher window.
Yeah.
So that told me that he was going to do something to Penguin. And like I said, he didn't.
Well, and by that point, things had sort of gone off the rails for the Penguin anyway. Like once he gets to kidnap Max Schreck, takes him down, and then locks him in the cage, and he's waiting for the kids to arrive so that he can drown them in the toxic waste or the industrial waste. Schreck gets out, and by that point, Batman's already thwarted Penguin, essentially. And then
it's kind of like in Batman '89, where you have the big threat at the end of the movie where the Joker's going to gas the city, and Batman shows up and thwarts that in like 2 seconds, and then the rest of it is just a showdown between Batman and Joker. And the same thing here, where you have the big threat, which, unlike the Joker thing, the balloons, they've been foreshadowing what Penguin intends to do for the entire movie with the lists. And then finally, when he reveals what it is he's going to do, Batman stops it like 10 seconds later. And it's like, this is the whole thing you're building up to, and it should have been the primary focus of your climax, and instead it just gets sidelined like that. And then you move on to something really goofy where he's got all these penguins hooked up to rockets, and they're all going to go commit suicide and murder for him. It's like, what?
Well, they don't commit suicide. The rocket shoots off of their back.
Right, but he also
But I
tells all
guess
the
they're
penguins that a
also
lot
in
of you will
danger.
not be returning.
That's true. You're right. You're right.
That
And they're
is-
supposed to be his babies, so why does he?
Yeah, his baby.
It's like
'Cause
he's
he was
killing
so
his
upset
family.
Right, because he was so upset when Batman brought them all back to the zoo. He's like, my babies, because he thinks they're going to be in danger. But it's like, weren't you going to leave them at the epicenter of the city to just, like, all
to
die?
blow up. Yeah.
Yeah, to blow up the whole city. But I do love the Penguin plot. But yeah, I mean, I get that Max Schreck still needed him to be mayor because it helped him. It would help him get his power plant through. But once the press conference happens, which I thought was funny because all Penguin had to do was step away from the microphones to demonstrate to people that he's not talking and he can make up any excuse he wants. Like, hey, somebody's using a voice box or something like that. And, you know, like the fact that everybody brought vegetables and he even comments on it like a fourth wall breaking joke, which is pretty funny. And then Shrek just kind of lets it slide. He figures, I guess it's over now. It's like, wait, what?
Yeah, there are a bunch of moments where it doesn't seem like Shrek's gonna follow through with any of it, but anyway. Yeah, I guess upon further sort of examination, it's almost episodic in terms of the way the movie is presented, and from the development of the Penguin to the development of Shrek to the development of Selena Kyle.
Well, and also how they merge into this one campaign and then how it gets foiled.
Right. But I do. And when I say it's episodic, it does sort of circle back and tie up all of the loose ends as they go, except for the one that you guys just mentioned in terms of that power plant. But I think that because as the plan fails and the world is literally crumbling around them, that it's just, all right, we'll deal with this tomorrow. I don't know what's going on with my capacitor right now. I'd like to live through the night. And he doesn't. Just Carol is here. Hello, Just Carol. Good to see you. Thank you for joining. And everybody who's in the chat, feel free to throw your review or thoughts for Batman Returns. Tom Jr. Jackson goes on in the chat to say the graphic novel Batman 89 is a great continuation of Keaton's Batman and brings back not only Catwoman but Billy D. Williams as Two-Face. I highly recommend it to those who haven't. Check it out. I haven't read it, but I've heard good things.
There was just a new thing put out too. It's like a Christmas time animated storybook version of Batman Returns.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they just got published this year.
Oh, nice. I'm gonna have to look for that. And Tom continues to say, each of these films feels like it is a different decade of Batman. Batman and Robin has a feel of the Batman 66. I agree. I don't necessarily have the same disdain for Batman and Robin just because I enjoy how sort of goofy and campy it is. And then we'll get into the production of Batman and Robin when we get there. The overlap, obviously, being Batman Forever when Tim Burton is still producing. Now, do we want to do a plot rundown or?
Yeah, we could. We don't have to be as detailed. Yeah, so this movie opens where it takes what was that very triumphant Batman theme that Danny Elfman had from the first movie, and it's the same theme, but it's in a much more haunting type of context because, you know, you begin with the Penguin being born and the high society parents, and I love how you just get that in one shot from them where they're, you know, Paul Rubens is looking out the window and he's got his like cigarette attached to it and he just kind of looks behind him and he screams and you get kind of what it is. And then when both he and the wife are looking out the window, just kind of looking over their shoulders with their cigarettes, like, you know, and like the question, like, is he a monster because you put him in a cage or was he already because he's in the cage? And so, yeah, that whole bit, I love that opening. Such a great prologue for setting up a villain and how sad it is. And I was like, you could have left him on a doorstep somewhere, but no, you're going to throw him into the sewer.
Yeah.
Which is like, okay. And then and it's funny because in again, the Batman 89, you're having that triumphant musical opening for Batman. In this case, it really takes off when when Penguin's in the sewer and you're like rooting for Penguin at that point. Like, oh, this is going to be a triumphant revenge story, you know, which it kind of is. And as a kid, I always wondered if Penguin found out who his parents were earlier and killed them himself, because they never said what happened to his parents, like if they just died or something. Like, did he get them? Because I would imagine that somebody as angry and as embittered as the Penguin would be more deeply resentful upset than ever that he wasn't able to get back at his parents.
I thought
I would,
absolutely that at some point that he killed them, but especially
Right.
because when he actually does go, when Batman says he already knows who his parents are, and when Penguin goes to lay the flowers on their grave, he doesn't really look bereaved. He's just pretending to be.
right.
Oh yeah.
He's pretending to be, and he just kind of, he's putting on that whole show. 'Cause of course, we know he wouldn't, like, even if he didn't kill him, he wouldn't forgive them, given how bitter he is. But I always thought that was kind of an interesting question of whether he did it. So after you have that great prologue, it says, there's a time jump by 33 years, even though Danny DeVito was 48 when they made this movie, but or 47, but he certainly doesn't look 33. And then you have this, Max Schreck is trying to buy the friendship of people and all of that by giving out free gifts and all this stuff, and they have the big Christmas tree. And then when his son Chip sees this gargantuan present being delivered, he's like, "Nice touch, Dad." He's like, "It's not me." And it bursts open. It's the Red Triangle Gang, and they're wreaking havoc, like mugging people and setting things on fire, destroying Christmas decorations. Gordon turns on the bat signal. Bruce is at home, just kind of brooding in Wayne Manor, and he sees it. He shows up as Batman, and you have basically a big action scene. And there's a running gag with the paper boy Gotham, played by Sean Whalen, who was first talking about the Penguin Man of the sewers, and Alfred sees the paper, and he kind of shrugs it like people believe that's stupid shit. And yet when he steps over the sewer grate, he kind of pauses, because as we see, the Penguin is actually looking on, and Alfred looks over his shoulder and see nothing. So you basically have a big action scene that's like kind of there for the sake of just having action. It doesn't really move the story forward or anything. And at the end of the scene, Gordon's like, "Thanks for saving the day, Batman." Feels totally like Batman 66 type vibes. And at that point, I thought the movie was going to follow Batman as he goes home, but it doesn't. Instead, it follows Max Schreck. We go back to his boardroom meeting where they're talking about the power plant, and Selina's listening to the conversation and is kind of picking up what's actually, because the gist is that the power plant is actually going to suck power from the city, which he's going to then sell back to the city for profit. And she's kind of picking up on this and interrupts and says, "I have a question." And then he's like, "Oh, sorry, we haven't housebroken her yet, but she makes a great pot of coffee." And then she kind of loses her nerve and doesn't ask a question. Then she's kind of kicking herself for it afterwards. She goes home, and I guess she had a boyfriend or had a date set up. Right. Yeah, she has a dog, which they never mention again, because he's this little dog that's there. And when she turns on her answering machine, I guess, again, she had a boyfriend who was going to take her out on a vacation or something. He's like, "Sorry, my therapist, whoever, says I should go by." She's like, she's all upset, so she deletes the machine, and then she finds out she forgot something at work, so she goes back. Shrek finds her there, and she, being naive and silly, kind of spills the beans on what she knows, and Shrek is like, "Did you tell anybody?" She's like, "No." And he's like, "Oh, it's not like you could just kill me." And he's like, one of my favorite Christopher Walken lines ever in any movie, he's like, "Actually, it's a lot like that." He's like, "Huh? And then she starts laughing, and he's like, and then he shoves her out the window. He justifiably thinks she's dead.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, she gets licked back to life by a bunch of cats, and she goes home, and like she has this neon sign on her wall that says "Hello there," and she destroys the O and then the T and there, and so it says "Hell" here through the window. She takes black spray paint and sprays the walls, and and all the strays start coming in, and it's like she becomes cat when she tears up all her suits and stuff and makes the Catwoman suit, and it's like, oh, okay, and she just basically became Catwoman.
It's her destructive behavior that it disturbs and entices all the kitties to crowd around her, and she's destroying all of her cute and pretty things, rejecting her old self.
Right. Okay. Yeah, like she takes her stuffed animals and shoves them down the garbage disposal, which I thought was kind of sad and it's like, what are you doing?
Well, she wants everything to be black now, but she ran out of spray paint.
Right. Yeah, she ran. Yeah, that's right. So that was all cool. And then in the spirit of jumping around, I forgot to mention that the whole purpose in the big action beat of the middle was because Penguin, I guess, needed the distraction to kidnap Max Schreck, and he takes him to the sewer. And he shows him basically that, look, I know you've killed your business partner. I know you're a dirty bastard. I know you're toxifying Gotham's waterways, and I know what's going on with your power plant. And he shows how he took all of the paper, all those shredded documents, and he meticulously stitched them back together. And he's like, "Hey, I got time to do it." And Max Schreck is like, "Oh my God, the Penguin Man of the sewer." And he's like, "Oh, what do you want?" And he's like, "Well, I didn't bring you down here to kill you. I just want you here to. You're gonna help me get the recognition I deserve." He's like, "Okay." We can make some kind of arrangements about this. And Penguin shows off his trick umbrellas and stuff. And so, again, the movie's spending an awful lot of time up front setting up the villains and what's going on with that. And then you have the mayor give his big speech about crime, and we're not going to let this happen again. And then one of the Doug Jones, I think it's the Doug Jones clown, does a couple backflips and seizes the mayor's baby and jumps down a sewer. And then all the reporters gather around. I like how the reporters gather around the Great Lego cops and they're just listening. He's like, "Oh no, it's the Penguin Man of the sewer! Don't hurt me, please. Here, take the baby." And then he hands the baby over, and I like how this effect works. I'm not exactly sure what the deal. So he gets in the duck, his duck thing, which has like a crank, so it rises up. And even though this duck is like huge, it somehow allows him to rise up through the narrow sewer hole, which is like not possible. But okay, it's a comic book movie, so he rises up perfectly. He hands the mayor the baby, and he's all hiding from the cameras. And the first interview, he's talking about how, oh, my parents, I guess they couldn't stand it when they saw flippers instead of digits, and I guess they felt the need to do what they did. Oh, but I don't hate them, or I don't know, I just want to find out who they are.
And so the front page of the newspaper says he's forgiven his parents.
Yeah, and how he wants to find and Bruce is watching this report on the news while Alfred's decorating the Christmas tree, and Bruce is like, man, he's looking for his parents. I really hope he finds them. And in the next scene, we have Penguin going down to the Hall of Records, and all the reporters are crowding around the door, demanding to know what he's doing. And Max Schreck kind of scares them all away, saying, "Hey, man, what about the right to privacy and the right to knowing who you are? Let's forget the Constitution for a bit. It's Christmas." Which I thought was really funny. I'm like, forget the Constitution. It's Christmas. Like, okay. And Batman, of course, is out prowling the streets, and he sees the Penguin in the window as he's writing down all these. We see him going through all the birth records, writing down certain names, and Batman's just kind of watching, not really sure what he's doing, and driving off. And back at the Batcave, he's starting to investigate the Red Triangle Gang, and he notices that one of the circus freaks that would travel around with the Red Triangle Circus was a bird boy, and that children were going missing at these places, but that the Penguin boy or whatever disappeared before he could be questioned by police. And Batman just assumes that this must be the Penguin, and he must be in charge of the Red Triangle Gang, which at first I thought was a leap, because
it is.
Okay, so he's living in the sewer, but that doesn't mean he's a member of the gang, but he just kind of made that. And he's the bird. He's got the the deformity, so he must be the bird boy from the circus, and he must be murdering the kid. And so he put pieces that together so fast without actually saying anything. And I get it; he's the world's greatest detective. But I thought that, from a detective standpoint, would be a very significant development in the investigation and the whole plot of the movie. And yet it happens like that, and which I thought was a bit of a drawback. Because again, I thought they could have gotten a lot of mileage over the fact that Bruce kind of feels some kinship with the Penguin over the fact that he wants to find his parents and that kind of thing. And they could have played that to the audience, against the audience, because of course we know the Penguin's evil, and they could have really done something with that, but they didn't. And so we have the next day where Penguin goes down to the cemetery. He forgives his parents and leaves a rose, and does this whole big show.
I agree, but at least it does tell us where his minions come from.
It does, yeah.
That is true, yeah. And so he does, and he forgives his parents, and that's when he goes home, and then Max does arrive with a fish to draw him to the announcement that they're going to run for mayor. Or wait, no, hang on a second.
No, the next scene was Bruce going down to Shrek's business headquarters and they're having the meeting about the power plant because he wants Bruce to invest in it. And Bruce says no, and he has no qualms about telling him straight to his face that I know this is just a scam, and I know that the Penguin is the leader of the Red Triangle Gang, and he's like, hey, I'm not going to stand for slander in this office. And now that, hey, if his parents hadn't 86'd him, you guys probably would have been bunkmates in prep school, which is kind of true, which is an interesting kind of a parallel to make, because he's also endorsing the view that he wouldn't have been a monster had his parents not treated him that way. And saying that, well, now that Penguin's, Oswald's Gotham's new golden boy, which is something else that Penguin discovered, his actual name. But he's like, well, now that he's Gotham's new golden boy, I've got him in my back pocket. So again, Shrek has no qualms about telling Bruce that basically you're right about me, but there's nothing you could do about it. And which I kind of liked, which is why it was making such a good point of setting up Shrek as, again, the villain and the adversary. Because with him being a businessman and Bruce being a businessman, that's a great rivalry right there that the movie does a good job at setting it up, but doesn't do anything with it. And then Selina comes in the room, and Max is like, Selina, and he tries to sheepishly talk about, oh, you had that skiing accident or whatever, and he's totally unconvincing at covering it up, and Bruce seems to buy it at the time, but he's also kind of taken aback by how beautiful she is, and they decide that they should head off at some point, and that's where we get to the next scene that you were talking about, Scott, where Shrek goes to meet Penguin upstairs. I'm not exactly sure where this is, but it's like some building, a business somewhere, and he wants to bring him downstairs, and you can run for mayor. And he's like, I have no interest in that. Blah, blah, I don't really give a shit about that. He's like, really? Not even for a bitch. And he just coaxes him like a dog down the stairs wearing this Victorian jumper, clothes looking. I'm like, dude, you want him coming downstairs like that? Shouldn't you dress him up in his outfit first?
Well, but he first introduces them to Jan and Josh and says, this is our style consultant or our publicity image people. And so
she's like, yeah, we should lose the gloves because our research tells us that voters like fingers and not flippers. Like, well, he doesn't have fingers.
And then that's where you get Josh bit in the nose. But the real thing that does motivate Cobblepot to try and run for mayor is, and I never caught it before, and I did this time, but the last thing that Shrek says to the Penguin is hot and cold running poontang. And I was like, wow, I never heard that part before. And it's like, you drive a hard bargain, Maxie. But it's
when I was a kid, I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, maybe that's what it was. That I didn't know what poontang was when I was 14. But I thought that, and so that seems to be the objective. And
he starts endorsing in all of his sexual fantasies. He's like, "Oh, have your coat, Mayor Cobblepot. Oh, come up to my room, Mayor Cobblepot." And all these types of sick things that he's thinking about.
Yeah, well, isn't that the best way to start a campaign? Bite someone's nose and then make your campaign slogan, burn, baby, burn.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Which is part of the plan.
Also, and that's where he comes up with the evil plan where, he tells Shrek, he's like, Shrek, elections are in November. This is not December. And he's like, well, there can be recalls, that things that happen. He's like, oh, you want my friends up there to go wreak some havoc? He's like, I like the way you think, Maxie. Yeah.
I guess it does have a logical progression to it. I keep saying it's episodic and disjointed, but it's not. It flows into each thing.
Yeah. It kind of does. It's just that at times they keep teasing, as we see with each part. Like this next scene right after this is admittedly a bit of a random thing where Catwoman, for some reason, decides to go trash a department store. It's one of Shrek's, I guess, and I thought she would just go back.
That's why.
And the reason I thought it was odd is because I thought she would have just gone straight back to kill Shrek right off the bat, because it didn't seem like she had some master plan of, tormenting him or anything. It's like, why don't you just go back and kill him now? But instead, she just goes to trash one of his department stores.
Yeah, she just blows it up. But at least she's targeting her destruction against Shrek, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
And then there's those two cops there who make those catty comments to her because they look at her and see her in that outfit, and
I don't know whether to open fire or fall in love.
Yeah.
And as Batman shows up to wreck the scene, the Penguin happens to be there, and he's like, "Oh, what? Surveying your damage?" He's like, Penguin's like, "No, I'm just checking out the streets of Gotham and seeing what the crime is like. Outstanding mayor stuff." And Batman's like, "You'll never be." And he's like, "Yeah, well, we'll see." And then just kaboom. And then that big explosion, and they see Catwoman dancing around out there, and Penguin's like, "I saw her first," and he gets one of his trick on bones.
That's funny because he doesn't even really follow them or anything.
Yeah, he doesn't, and he just kind of takes off in his umbrella to go, I guess, come up with his plan while Batman does a square off against Catwoman, throws her off the building because he was trying to catch her. But
he doesn't even really want to fight her, though.
Yeah, he doesn't want to fight her. He just sees that she blew up the department store, so he's like, "Oh, what are you doing? I got to stop this." Even though in that same sequence, Batman kills a bunch of Penguin's Red Triangle thugs, outright murders some fools. But he ends up throwing Catwoman off a roof into a dump truck full of kitty litter, or at least that's what she falls. He's like, saved by kitty litter. And this is followed up by the first major mayoral scene where Penguin comes down the stairs in the campaign office, and this time he's got the whole suit on, and it just looks gorgeous on him. And he's announcing his bid for mayor, and a reporter at the back picks up the phone and basically calls headquarters and lists his slogan for that Penguin has thrown his hat in the ring to run for mayor. And after he gives his big speech talking about how the mayor has let the city go to hell, he's heading back up the stairs, and these two ladies, like young ladies, pulling his shirt. He's like, "Oh, Mr. Penguin, you're the greatest role model any girl could ask for." And he's like, "And you're the greatest girl that any role model could ask for."
Yeah, I really loved. I loved that part because his speech.
Yeah,
it was the Penguin who raised those clowns who are terrorizing the neighborhood, and Max who made Catwoman. So that speech is really great. A great campaign opener.
Yeah, definitely. And it's very, again, Two-Face, which would have been fitting if Two-Face had been the character. But I like how blatantly sexual pervert that Penguin is, where he says, "Here, you have this campaign button," and he's putting the button on her breast pocket, pressing it on there. He's like, and you look at the look in his eyes and how just seedy that he is. And but then he doesn't invite her upstairs or anything. He just decides to go back up and poses for another picture. And he's like, "Oh, this bear stuff is really great. It's going to be about meeting people, touching people, groping people." I just started laughing because it's like, my God, and the people are right down there, could probably still hear him. And when he gets back upstairs, this guy's like, "Penguin, there's someone here to see you." And he's like, "My name's not Penguin, I'm Oswald," which is a neat character progression, because now he's not just doing this for the crime benefit. He's like genuinely invested in the delusion of being the mayor, of being like this, upstanding guy that's going to be respected by the city, even though he has no interest in being a respectable person. And so when the guy says, "Okay, Oswald, well, there's someone here to see you," and it's Catwoman, and she's basically saying that, "Look, Batman's a thorn in both our sides. We got to do something." And he's like, "I already got a plan. Look, we're going to tear apart his Batmobile and turn it into an H-bomb on wheels." And somehow they have the blueprints of the Batmobile. I'm not sure how, but they just have it. And she's like, "Well, you can't just kill Batman and that'll make him a martyr." And he's like, "Ah, you mean frame him?" And so he's thinking about what this is going to be while she notices the lists. And I like that they brought that up again. She sees the list by his bedside, and he slaps it with his umbrella, and he's like, "Those names aren't for prying eyes." And he's like, "Why should I trust you anyway? You could just be some spoiled little brat who's upset that her daddy didn't give her a pony on her sweet 16. And then she gets his attention back by opening the bird cage and taking the bird and putting it in her mouth. And then there's a cat on the bed. So Penguin goes to sit down, and he's like, "Nice kitty, pretty kitty," as he's petting it. And then he takes out his trick umbrella that has like a sword, like he's going to kill it. And then she lets the bird go. He lets the cat go. And she's like, "Well, come on, we have to do this." And he's like, and then he just kind of lays back on the bed. And he's like, he puts his face together like a shadow. And he's like, "A plan is forming." Like, this is so cartoonish, but I love it. It's just so fitting. And he's totally hitting on her still in the scene, but he hasn't made like the full on like move yet. Meanwhile, Bruce meets Selina out on the street while she's window shopping. He's like, "Wow, it's nice to see you out here in the real world, away from Shrek." And she's like, "Oh yeah." He's like, "Let's have a date. Let's meet tonight, 5 or 6. She's like, "Oh, I actually have something tonight." He's like, "How about 5? She's like, "Okay, I'll meet you at 5. He's like, "Okay, I'll see you then." So she comes to Wayne Manor. They're having drinks, and they're gonna watch like the Christmas tree lighting ceremony or whatever it is with the whole Ice Princess thing. But meanwhile, at the actual carnival, the Penguin shows up pretending to be a photographer, wanting to take the Ice Princess's picture, and instead he takes a batarang and like he throws it at her. And at first I thought he killed her, but he did.
I did too. I thought, man, he just killed her with that.
Yeah, he kind of takes her away, and then there's a news update while Bruce is leaning on the couch, and it's Gordon giving an interview saying the Ice Princess is missing, and we found this bloody batarang at the scene, but right now we're not sure what this means. He's very interested in defending Batman's integrity, and Bruce is like, "Oh shit, I gotta go." And then she's like, "Oh no," and then she realizes she has to go, but neither of them want to say where they're going.
Yeah, they're both rushing out to go to the same place.
Yeah, and Alfred and Bruce is like, "Alfred, tell her something. I gotta go." And then he runs into her, and she's trying to. It's like, "Alfred, tell him something." He's like, "Oh, okay, that solves it." It's like, "Oh, out this way, madam."
A dirty limerick.
A dirty one has just popped to mind, madam.
So, Batman drives down to the town square. He parks his car in an alley, Penguin's thugs immediately get to tearing apart the Batmobile and turning it into the H-bomb on wheels, as Penguin says. While Batman very quickly finds the Ice Princess, he rushes over to save her, but then Catwoman shows up and gets in the way. They get in a fight, and towards the end of the fight, the Penguin moves the Ice Princess over onto the edge of the rooftop, and she gets kicked off, and Batman rushes over to try and save her, but from the perspective of the people down below, it looks like Batman pushed the Ice Princess. And weirdly, he kind of just stands there and watches her fall. I thought,
yeah, right. He didn't even try to do anything.
Yeah, I'm like, with all the gadgets you have in your arsenal, you didn't have anything to at least try to save her. You just kind of stand there awkwardly and watch her.
Yeah, especially since he brought his big old wings with him. He had his glider.
That's true.
Yeah, the glider and everything. And when she falls on the ground, she hits the button that lights up the Christmas tree, and a bunch of bats like fly out of it, which I thought was actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
And Batman goes to leave, and she's like, she tells the Penguin, he's like, you said you were just gonna scare the Ice Princess, not gonna kill her, which shows that she's not an outright villain, which is good because it keeps her character consistent. And he's like, she looked pretty scared to me. And he pours champagne and he hits on her, and she rejects his advances. And he's like, you little entitled little minx, what I gotta do for the hero? Oh, screw you, I don't think I like you anymore. And he throws one of his trick umbrellas at her that's like a helicopter and dangles her up into the sky. And he's like, goodbye, my sweet princess. Go to heaven.
I loved that line.
I did. And she ends up falling off the umbrella and crashing into the greenhouse. And then all of the glass shatters on top of her as she screams, losing one of her lives. Batman, meanwhile, goes back to the Batmobile, but finds that the Penguin, who goes back through a very loving and supporting crowd into his campaign van, where he has a mini, like a little, like one of those little miniature rides that you find outside of grocery stores for kids, for the Batmobile. Right. And he even decorated it to look like the Batmobile, which is funny. And he gets in it, and
it's so cute.
And he communicates to Batman on this video screen, and he's talking to him about how, I played this city like a heart from hell. I like how I'm taking care. Don't worry, I'll look after the pinstripe dummies of Gotham, or whatever, the pinheaded puppets of Gotham, or whatever he says.
Yeah.
And then he basically takes command of the Batmobile and drives it around, wrecking it through cars, knocking over a bunch of cops. And it takes Batman a while, but finally he finds the radar thing on the bottom of the car that he has to punch through to rip it off, and stops the car just in time before he hits an old lady, flees back to the Batcave, and Penguin's all angry that his plan's been foiled.
Yeah, but he also has to strip away half of the Batmobile to fit in between these buildings.
Right.
And then the police are crazy because they just smash themselves into the building.
Well, I think they don't realize the give, or maybe they thought that they would crash into the Batmobile, pinning it there. I don't know. But my favorite Batman moment of all time is when Batman's in the Batmobile, Penguin is just lost control of the Batmobile, and so Batman's gonna flip it into the Bat missile, and then he's like, click. He's like, huh. That's not good. And he click, click, click. All right, now I'm getting a little worried, which is my favorite moment because it is Bruce as Batman using Bruce's voice, just reacting and being a person. And the reason that I was so frustrated with The Dark Knight Rises is there's a moment where Christian Bale's Batman is standing on a roof and Anne Hathaway's Catwoman is there. And she just takes off on him. And Batman, as Batman, says, oh, that's what that feels like. And I was like, no. You look at what Michael Keaton did when he's trying to flip the, now I'm a little worried. That's how Batman would react by himself. And I thought that was perfect. It's one of the reasons that Michael Keaton gets over the moon. Sorry, I got really excited about that one line. Anyway.
Yeah.
So we get back to the Batcave with the new CD technology.
Yes, and so we have the Penguin is about to have a press conference, and Max Schreck says, "Don't worry, everything's going fine. It doesn't matter. You know, people hate Batman now. They love you still. Just go out there and give a great speech." And meanwhile, in Wayne Manor, Alfred's telling Bruce that, you know, we really need to do something about the security given what happened to the Batmobile. And he's like, "Oh, security, really? Like when you let Vicky Vale into the Batcave?" Like, "Oh, hi, Vicky." And
hey,
Alfred
Vic.
has no comeback to that. He doesn't. Bruce reaches into its fish tank and presses a secret button on a little castle figurine in there, and it opens this Iron Maiden, which I love is the entrance to the Batcave. And Alfred's like, I think I'll take the stairs. And Bruce gets in the Iron Maiden, it closes on him, the blades retract, and then he gets dropped down a trapdoor and slides effortlessly out this tunnel chute into the cave. And he gets, like you said, the great CD technology, and they boot it up and they hack into the Penguin's signal where he's giving another speech chastising the mayor, and everybody's into the whole recall, and people holding signs saying, hey, Oswald means order, and all this kind of crap. And finally, Bruce plays the Penguin's dialogue over the radio where he says, don't worry, I'll look after the pin-headed puppets of Gotham, and I've played this stinking city like a harp from hell. And then Bruce just keeps putting his hands on the CD. He keeps playing that one bit over and over again. And as I said before, Penguin just stands there. He's like, well, I didn't say that. But rather than stepping away from the microphones to demonstrate, hey, I'm not saying this shit, he just kind of stands there. And so everybody thinks he's shouting this because he's short enough that people can't see his actual face when he's talking. So they can't tell that he's actually not saying that. And then because it's a comic book movie, everybody just brought tomatoes and lettuce and start throwing it at him. And Max Streck just kind of walks off to the side and looks at Penguin, and Penguin looks at him with this pleading look, like, what do I do? And Shrek is like, eh. He just shrugs his shoulders. And
I heard that Danny DeVito refused a stand-in for that scene and wanted it, so he is definitely the one being pelted.
He wanted to be pelted. And Tom Jr. Jackson says, why is there someone who always brings tomatoes to a speech? That was
yes, that was and he good. Uses the umbrella to block to block the vegetables, and then I'm assuming that the gun was loaded with blanks because he's shooting directly into the crowd and nobody's dying. And so everybody's freaking out and diving, and then finally Penguin, panicking, just runs down the stairs. He leaps forward, crashing into a bunch of people, loses his top hat, flees into the park, and gets chased by police who are just shooting at him. And he eventually jumps off the same bridge that his parents threw him off of and dives into the water, back into the sewer. When he arrives there on the duck, they're like, one of the clowns, the big clown, he's like, great, or the Doug Jones clown, he's like, great speech, Oswald. And he throws it back. He's like, my name is not Oswald. It's Penguin. I am not a human being. I am an animal. And he just
crank the AC.
It's great because it's like a total, it's the next progression of the character. It's like, oh, I've been rejected by the people, so now screw the people. And so then he's like, that's it. Now we're gonna go. Where are the lists? Give me the names. He's like, that's it tonight. And he starts handing each a different page out, or set of pages out to different thugs. And he's like, tonight, while their parents are out partying like morons, we're gonna go sneak into their hounds and take their children and bring them down here into the sewers and throw them into a dark, watery grave. And he looks totally just completely delusional as he's saying this. And the fat clown is like, Penguin, throwing, kidnapping, killing kids, that's a little. And then Penguin turns around, he grabs an umbrella, and he's like, no, and he shoots him, and he walks over. He's like,
it's a lot.
And he just kicks the body, and it rolls into the toxic sludge in the water. And so it's like, oh, they're apparently really doing this. And so then we cut back to the Batcave, and Alfred's like, so, Master Bruce, I assume we're going to reject this invitation to Mr. Shrek's loathsome Christmas party. And he's like, yeah, not interested. And Alfred just tears it up, and Bruce is like, although Selena might be there. And Alfred's like, And so, then we cut to which I thought was kind of a funny time to have a humorous beat right after the Penguin has unveiled this sadistically evil plan that we're going to cut to a funny moment between Bruce and Alfred. But okay, yeah. The movie's kind of full of this stuff. So then we cut to the party. Yeah.
Alfred must have felt a little guilty about any of the situation that happened between Vicky and Bruce, because he certainly doesn't seem all that intrigued with marrying off Bruce this time.
Right, not at all. Especially, yeah, and that's kind of funny because in the first one you assume he marries him off because he wants Bruce to be like normal, have a family and all that. And then in this one, it's like I didn't get the sense that it's because he didn't like Selena so much as maybe Bruce gave him more grief behind the scenes for letting Vicky in the Batcave, because we don't know. They never said what happened with that relationship. It's just, I guess, it just didn't work out. So yeah, they just kind of drop any like that. That's again another symptom of the Burton movies, is that they come up with certain ideas and they don't really pursue them. Like they didn't carry over there's really no relationship type
Well, they
story
said
with Bruce and Alfred this time.
he said that she couldn't reconcile the duality. Of
Right. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Well, and also with these two films, as mentioned, like it seemed like Tim Burton made two Tim Burton movies. The first one's obviously much more Batman, but he wasn't as happy with the '89 the Sam Hamm, Sam Hamm script as opposed to this script, which he was much more in tuned with. But part of the reason, aside from I think it was like $11 million. Michael Keaton got for playing Batman this time, but it was also pitched to him by saying it's going to be a standalone movie. It's not even really a sequel. It's just another Batman movie, kind of like a James Bond movie. They're not really sequels, but they are follow-up, subsequent adventures, and that's what brought him back. But yeah, but I guess there are references to the first one. Anyway, sorry, continue.
So Bruce goes to Max's party. Have a bunch of people, again, kind of skewering the whole high society thing, sort of like they had with that charity scene and ballroom scene in Dark Knight Rises, where Bruce actually overtly criticizes it. Whereas in this case, similarly, he has no interest in the charity ball. He's only there because he's looking for Selina. But he first runs into Max Schreck, and they have this, again, kind of a battle of wits, if you will, where Bruce is like, so your little plan to make Penguin the mayor kind of blew up in your face, did it, And he's like, it doesn't really, I can fix it. It doesn't really matter who's going to be the mayor. And he's like, yeah. And Bruce is like, yeah, it does. And he just kind of fires back. No, it doesn't. Oh, like kind of chastising Bruce for being cheesy. Oh, you care about who the mayor of the city's going to be. Whereas Shrek is like, yeah, you're not going to stop me. Which again, gives the implication that there's some other, like something that he's going to pull the rabbit out of the hat for his evil plan with the power plant. That I'm still expecting something to come of that.
Right. Especially he says, I am the light of this city.
Right, and they keep pushing that, and so
I am its mean, twisted soul.
Right,
Yes.
and so Shrek walks away. Bruce finds Selina. They start dancing. They're having a good time, and eventually they get under the mistletoe, and she's like, "Oh, it's mistletoe. I've heard mistletoe can be deadly if you eat it." And he's like, and he's like, "Yeah, and a kiss can be even deadlier." Like, oh shit, if you mean it, and then. And they realize that they're both, because they mentioned that before in one of their fights is Batman and Catwoman. And she's like, do we have to start fighting now? And he's just like, no. And she's talking, she's shown that she brought a gun with her, a little Derringer, to kill Shrek. And Bruce is like, oh shit, like we're not going to do, don't do that. She's like, oh, I suppose I should. And she's kind of, you could tell she's very uneasy about everything. Like she even went down to watch Penguin's disastrous press conference as, Selina Kyle. Like I like how she's sort of in control of the Catwoman duality, because when she's Catwoman, she seems totally out of her element, just totally free and just happy. Whereas Selina, she's all uptight and everything is the way everybody treats her. But she also seems, as Selina, to be a little kooky, whereas as Catwoman, she seems to be more in control, which I kind of like that, and I wish they pursued that a bit more. So, she's got the Derringer. Bruce stops her from using it, and before they could come up with a resolution for this conflict. The conflict being is she going to try and kill Shrek at the party?
Right.
There's suddenly a massive explosion in the floor. Everybody falls over. Penguin rises up in the duck and announces how he's basically sent his minions out to kidnap your children while you've all been partying and getting drunk. And Bruce panics and immediately flees the scene. And Penguin says, well, I've come here for Gotham's favorite son, which I kind of laughed at because I didn't get the sense that anybody regarded Chip Shrek that way. But he walks up to Chip and he's like, you're coming with me. You're coming with me, boy. You're going down to the sewer to die along with everybody else. And Max Shrek surprisingly shows an ounce of humanity here, where he says, no, it's not him. It's me that you want. Aren't I the one who betrayed you? I propped you up. I helped you on this, and then I let you to drop con. If you have any iota of human emotion, you will take me instead. And he's like, well, I don't, so no. And he's like, come on, but I'm the one you want. And he's like, you drive a heart. You got a point, Maxie. Fine. I'll let the whelp live for now, but you get in the duck. Which I think is so funny that he's making these threats from a giant, like, rubber ducky type boat. Which is just,
But that was the only present that his parents ever gave him. It was a rubber ducky that was hanging.
Oh, that's true. Hanging from the cage when he murdered that cat.
But it also shows that Max does care about his legacy.
It is Max. His only redeeming quality is his devotion to his son.
Yes, and how this legacy, like if Med left this all for you, like, and I wasn't clear at first if Chip knew that his father killed Selena Kyle, because he's like, what are we gonna do about her, Dad, when she had showed up at the meeting with Bruce, and he's like, I'll just drop her out of a higher window next time, but I got bigger fish to fry, that kind of thing. So it's like, okay, so Chip's aware that his dad's corrupt and probably kills people, even though he seems like too much of a dimwit to inherit the legacy and that kind of stuff. So Penguin takes him down to the sewers, and we cut to Penguin's circus caravan led by Vincent Schiavelli, and they're kidnapping the children and locking them up in these circus cages, which again could have been a much darker scene if directed differently. It just felt a little goofy, kind of like, with Batman 89, the whole thing of the Joker wanting to murder everybody in the city with the toxic gas could have been a very dark type of spin, but because they're all dancing to the Prince music and shit, it just sounded it didn't feel as dark as it should have. And same thing with this. It's like a very quick bit where they're locking the kids in the cages, and Chevelle's like, come on, hurry up, we ain't got all night. And then Batman shows up, and I assume Batman killed these people because he has no qualms about killing in these movies. I totally believe it. So then we cut back to the sewer, and Max Schreck has been locked inside a cage, a big bird cage, as it were, dangling over his toxic sludge. And Penguin's talking about how he's going to lure the children down here, and he takes out an umbrella that has a bunch of stuffed animals on it. He's like, come down for a little Pied Penguin action, and the kitties are going to follow me. And he walks over these wooden planks, and then they're going to fall into the toxic sludge, and you will watch them as they die and drown in your toxic waste, and then you join them. And I love how Shrek is just looking at this guy like, you are completely fucking nuts. And
yeah.
I almost forget that Shrek is the villain of the movie at this point, because we've just gone into total, completely insane territory at this point. But at the same time, I love how they're bringing this back around, that this is the bitterness and the envy and the jealousy that he's lived with forever, which again is something that echoes back into modern Batman with the Riddler and Batman 22, which we'll get to later. Yeah. And so he just wants this vengeance because he just hates how everything's been lost. And yet the circus monkey shows up and comes down the stairs and brings Penguin a note. And I love that Batman has his own stationery with the Bat logo on it. And Penguin reads the note and says, "Dear Penguin, the children regret that they're unable to attend the Merry Christmas, Batman." And
I heard that.
He starts screaming. And then you get
the handwriting there was Bob Kane's handwriting.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. They got Bob Kane to write the note, and then you have the drums, like the war drums playing as Penguin comes out, and they got a big spotlight on him, and he gives this great speech talking about how that's it. That we have to. Why should we go after just firstborns, secondborns, thirdborns, fourthborns? Why be biased? Male and female, the sexes are equal. That's
right. When they're blown up. They wouldn't put me on a pedestal, so I'm laying them on a slab. Yes, that's great. And he's like, some of you, it's okay to be scared. Some of you won't be returning, or a lot of you won't be returning. And the liberation of Gotham has begun. And it's like, okay, this is, I don't know where he got all the bombs and all the missiles, but okay, here we go. And I love how the Penguins just follow his orders, and they just jump in. They start jumping into the river and taking off to go march into the center of town. And Batman is driving the Batmobile, initially heading for the sewers, but Alfred is watching on the computers, and he's telling them what's going on, and they hack into the radio signal to redirect the Penguins to send them back to the zoo. And as one of the Penguins' minions is reading about the results on the radar, saying that there's something wrong, they're turning, they're leaving, they're coming back, and there's something heading this way, very large, very fast. And the Batmobile, which is kind of like the Batsky boat now, is like speeding down the sewers, and slowly Penguin's looking around, and all of his minions are like deserting him because they're like afraid that they've lost, And so Penguin screams, and he gets into the duck, which has like tires, and he drives out to the top of the zoo. And Batman, seeing this on the radar, takes a hard left going up this slope. And I didn't like the shot of it actually crashing through because it's like a super close up. Thought it would have been cooler if it was like a more wide shot, but it crashes, and then it just cuts to the next shot where it's already hit the duck. You don't actually like see it like hit it proper, but whatever. But the duck kind of blows up. Deliberately crashes into it.
Yeah, he deliberately crashes into the duck. The Penguin gets out, and he's angry, and he sees that all of his penguins are back with all of the rockets, and he's angry. He's like, "My babies!" And he gets his umbrella out with the sword, and he starts fighting Batman. And during the fight, he knocks him on the ground, and he's like, "You're just jealous because I'm a genuine freak, and you have to wear a mask." And Batman's like, "You may be right." But he throws him off his back and knocks him through the glass shards of Arctic World. And the Penguin falls into the amphitheater, into the toxic waste sludge. And we assume that that's the end of the Penguin for the time being, as Batman goes, looks through the window, and he sees that Selina Kyle is Max Schreck has gotten out of the cage because he's coaxed the monkey to bring the keys to him, but he's unable to escape because Selina Kyle stops him, or Catwoman stops him, and Batman uses his grapple gun repel to glide him with his wings as well, which again, something he should have used to save the Ice Princess, but whatever. So he lands down at the amphitheater, and he starts talking to Selina to try and talk her off the pedestal, as it were, and he tears his mask off, which I guess is his way of committing, because again, they already know who each other is. And Shrek is like, "Bruce Wayne, why are you dressed like Batman?" And she's like, "Because he is Batman, you moron."
Yeah, he's trying to appeal to Selina so she won't kill Max.
That's right, what I thought.
Because she's like, "Because he is Batman." He's like, "Was," and he just shoots Batman, knocking him on the ground. And then she's like, "That's it. You killed me once, then Penguin killed me, and then Batman killed me next. What are you gonna do?" It's like, "I have enough lives as the last." It's like, "Well, there's one way to find out." And he just starts shooting her 3 more times, and she's like, 4 or 5 still alive. He shoots her again. He's like, 6, 7, all good girls go to heaven. And he tries to shoot her again, but he's out of bullets. And so then she's like, "How about a kiss, Auntie Claus?" And she takes the taser that she has. Yeah. The stun gun, and grabs hold of the electrical cables for whatever this generator furnace thing is, and then she kisses him with it, and there's like all these sparks fly and these explosions, and Batman eventually gets up to go over to see what's going on.
Yeah, that's great, because that taser she got a long time ago at the beginning of the movie.
Right, and then he pulls up, which I love that she ends up using the taser that she got for that purpose to ultimately kill Max, her chief abuser, and Batman pulls the shards away, and he sees Max Schreck's totally charred corpse, but Selina's gone. And in the background, out of focus, we see the Penguin first they show it directly where the Penguin rises up out of the water, and as Batman is going through the rest of the rubble looking for Selina, we see out of focus the Penguin in the background, and Batman hears it, and he turns around as Penguin pulls the umbrella, but it ends up being a fake, a joke one. And
I picked the cute one.
Yeah, I picked the cute one, and he drops it, and he's like, "I'll murder you momentarily, but first I need some ice, a drink of ice cold water." And he just falls, and he's got all this green and black bile pouring out of his mouth, and he just keels over. And then the Emperor Penguins come out, which are designed by Stan Winston Studios, by the way, and they come alongside the Penguin, forming this like funeral procession.
They're like little pallbearers.
Yeah, and instead of carrying the casket, they're just sliding Penguin's body into the water, and you have this great shot from underwater as Penguin's falling down below. And then we cut to sometime later. The Arctic Zoo got blown up because that's what the Batman directed the rockets to do. And so Bruce is in the car with Alfred. He's kind of sad, and he sees the shadow of Catwoman. He's like, "Alfred, stop the car!" And he gets out and he runs down the alley, and he sees this cat. And he can't find Selina anywhere, and she presumably is out. Because we saw that she was an anti-hero, because earlier in the movie she does save somebody from like a presumed mugger rapist person.
Right.
That's why I loved her when I was a kid.
Yeah, because she's not really a villain, and so he can't find Catwoman. So instead he just takes the cat with him back into the car, and he's like, and Alfred's like, "Well, come what may. Merry Christmas, Mr. Wayne." And he's like, "Yeah, Merry Christmas, Alfred, and goodwill toward men and women," as he pets the cat. And then we have the great crane shot rising up into the sky as we see again, instead of Batman looking at the bat signal, it's Catwoman overlooking the sky. And I love that for the end of this movie. So I think overall they're doing a lot more thematically with the characters. The idea that you have like the duel of the freaks, if you will. Each of these 3 characters has been wronged in some way and acting out their trauma and having to deal with it. But again, the script is a little bit all over the place. The Max Schreck character I thought got short shrift. I like how the Schreck character ends, that Catwoman's the one who does him in. I just don't like that he never really, like that plot line of his just kind of got shafted in favor of the Penguin thing at the end. But I still love this movie. It's one of my favorite Batman movies, even though I agree that there's not enough of a Bruce Wayne storyline in it, or there really is no storyline for Bruce Wayne, period. He's just kind of there. But I love the design of it.
No, but Michelle Pfeiffer did kickbox training and yoga and karate.
And the whip work as well. What was it with the, I don't know if you guys read about this, Stan Winston was asked about his creations for the penguins, for the Emperor penguins. And they had a couple of real ones that they had shipped over from the British countryside. And they were like in air conditioned areas and stuff like that. But they had one of the robotic penguins and a real one. And they had walked in and the real penguin was cuddling with the robot penguin.
Yeah, that's so cute.
He must have done a good job.
Yeah. Also, another proof that he did a good job with the penguins is that after all their work, they had mated and had lots of babies. I heard that as well. Yeah. And I would say, this is one of my favorite Batman movies. And also it does end up getting into rotation at this time of year. It is a Christmas movie, in my opinion. They light a Christmas tree like 3 times. So I'm down with it. I like it. The final line of the movie is Christmas salutation. But I would say this is, and I don't know, we may actually have to, when we get through all of these, just do a single ranking of where we want to put it. I know we're not really scoring them, but I love this movie.
Oh yeah, that's right. In terms of how many are scores out of 10, how many batarangs do you give it out of 10, Scott?
I'm going to go 8. I'm going to go 8. I think I went 8 last week as well.
Jill?
9, and I love your description of this movie. Everything you said, I agree with it.
I am also going to give it 8 batarangs.
Wow.
But I should say also that DeVito's Penguin is like my favorite Batman movie villain. I love it. It's just so... I have a lot in common with that character. I love that character. He's so pitiful, but I want to root for him. His anger is just... I love how... That's why I kind of wish that there, again, was more of a story with Bruce Wayne and Batman, and the way they kind of... Because they did a lot of work with him and Max Schreck, setting up Bruce Wayne, having a rivalry with him that doesn't go anywhere, whereas they didn't have much going on with Batman and Penguin. It's kind of like that little bit of a divide there, and I thought they could have ironed out some of those details more. But I still really love this movie. It's my favorite of the Burton Schumacher era of Batman films. I'm surprised. On the one hand, I'm not surprised that a lot of people had a problem with it at the time because, it is hypersexualized, and innuendos, which aren't too much innuendos, is about as thin as you can get with some of this stuff. Like with, Penguin does brag about he wants to touch and grope people, and how he basically does grope the girl in the room and stuff like that. But I loved it, and it's like, for people to say complain about him being grotesque, it's like, well, one, he's the villain, and number two, if you're hating him just because he's grotesque as opposed to the things he does, then you're just proving this point that you're cruel in maligning him just because he seems grotesque, and that just more points for the Penguin. So that, which to me just is like, that's the marks of a good villain and a great character, and I feel that was the best written character in the film. Because again, the other storylines kind of are bouncing around. I just wish that Burton got to do another movie, because I'm pretty sure he would have brought back Catwoman, and just to see where that would have gone. Because now that she's gotten her revenge on Shrek, I wonder where she would go from there. Is she going to just go on to be kind of like the quasi Robin Hood type character in the comics? Is she going to try and pursue a relationship with Batman, especially now that they know each other, which is a bit of a departure from the comics? At least from the long-running comics. I mean, more recent years, they had Batman and Catwoman like get married, but so I really wish they made a third. But they didn't, which is too bad.
But again,
this movie made less. The first Batman '89, I believe, made $411 million. This one made $266 million.
And I really love the Penguin character too. Apparently Danny DeVito remained in character in between all the takes,
which is awesome.
I always joke that the other show he's on, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where he plays Frank Reynolds, who is a rich guy who gives up his rich life because he said, I became successful so quickly, I never got to live like a kid and a bum in my 20s. And one of the things that he and his the roommate Charlie like to do is go down into the sewers and play stupid, creepy games. And I'm like, that's like a prequel story to how he became a penguin. His Frank Reynolds character is an extended origin story for the Penguin. I love it.
And he makes Sunny, so
he does, and it's just, and that's great. I love that show. But I like how that's kind of like, oh, it's like you went on to play the Penguin in a different light. But yeah, I love that character. I mean, comics accuracy be damned. I still love that character, and I love this.
Well, I'm glad that this is our festive special, as it were, and that we all enjoyed it. Because if we all sat around and said, no, it's not a Christmas movie, and I didn't like it, then I would be like, oh no, what a horrible decision this was, because this was my request. So thank you for allowing and indulging. The question is, Kat, before we jump into the chat, my question to you is, are we going straight into Schumacher, or do you want to take a stop off at 66 before we move on to Schumacher?
We should probably take a stop over in 66 simply because we're going to be making a lot of comparisons to 66 with the Schumacher, because that's kind of what everybody compared the Schumacher films to.
Perfect. That's what I was thinking. So the next one we'll do is the Batman the movie from 1966. Anyway, thank you so much to everybody who's in the chat. Let's say hello. And thank you once again, Tom Jr. Jackson. Have you checked out and subscribed to Antiderivative Jill's channel? Subscribe and check it out. And he's got the link there. And
thank you, Tom. Oh, go ahead.
And then, do you enjoy the content that the good folks at the Fantasmagorium show are bringing you? Why not support the channel with a tip? And there is a link there, Tom. You are doing a master's work. I appreciate it. Milton, the Insane Witch King. Milton Knowles. Nice to see you, sir.
Oh, I haven't seen him around.
And I know there were comments. The best Batman was Adam West. Did you hear about what that lunatic got up to off stage? I'm going to have to delve into some research because I am lacking in my my Adam West knowledge.
I did hear a story where he borrowed the Batmobile from the show on Halloween night to go trick-or-treating dressed as Batman with Burt Ward as Robin, and they only made it to like 3 houses on the street because it was so hysterical and ridiculous.
That's amazing.
I will give candy to adults who are trick-or-treating. I don't care.
Well, it depends on the costume, though.
Yeah, true.
Milton Knowles, the Insane Witch King, says his parents threw him into the sewer to be quite frankly should have killed them. He's literally doing the world of favorites. Sorry, you're making him sound like a good guy. He's
No, we're not saying he's justified for wanting to kill the city. Definitely not. I mean, he's evil for that, no doubt. Sure. But the idea that he should have killed the parents, it's like, yeah, the parents were unquestionably evil. And like we said, the movie's it's making the point that because they treated him like a monster simply because he looked different is why he became one. Because he clearly craves love and affection and respect. That's what he wanted. And that's why he's so bitter and envious, because he can't have it. Which is why many have pointed out that he's kind of a sympathetic character in Burton's eyes. That doesn't justify all the horrible things that he does. Not in the least. I'm not making him sound like a good guy. But at times in the beginning, I can root for him to get revenge against the parents, but not when it's revealed that he's, been killing kids all these years and all this kind of crazy stuff.
Hashtag the Penguin as a good guy. Black Phillip says, holy shit, it's Milton. Where have you been? Milton's giving it back. And have they read the chat yet? Asks Black Phillip Alvarez. No, we get to it at the end. I apologize, but I do appreciate it when everybody sticks around. We just want to stay on task because we got to get through the recap. Milton Knoll says, not that I've noticed. I'm tempted to start typing in silly comments to see what happens. Kat, would you be able to take over the chat for a second? Snoopy's having a bit of a Yelp fest.
I would. Let me find where we are here.
What a great recap that was.
Oh,
I was like watching the movie again.
Let's see, where is...
I think...
Here we go.
There we go.
All right. Yeah.
Cool.
Tom says to Phil, yeah, they did, but I'm sure they will do more. Yeah, we jump into the chats back and forth, Phil. We get a little bit of them in the beginning, and we cover a bunch more after the recap. Yep, and Phil reminds Milton that we do read all the comments. To which Milton says, "That's dangerous information, Mr. Black." I take, and then I expect to see some pretty great comments from you coming forward, Milton. Okay, so they read my earlier ones. Thanks. Yes, we did. Let's see. Phil says, "Call me BPA if you must, Milton. I'm not a reservoir dog, Milton." Tom says to you, Jill, the guy who got his nose bit off was played by a man named Steve Winning, who used to be on a show called Valerie's Family, and then it was changed to The Hogan Family. Yeah. I'm not familiar with either.
Me neither, but those were the two people telling the penguin he was ugly, and so he bit his nose.
Milton says, hashtag President Cobblepot for 4 more years. 4 more years. Sure. Tom says, why is there someone who always brings yes, tomatoes with sweet? Yeah, we're sorry. We covered that one. And lettuce. Phil says, the Burton films are my favorite Batman movies, period. I'm curious how a third one would have been like. He would have brought in Robin and Scarecrow as one of the villains. Marlon Wayans would be Robin. Ooh, I don't know about that. I mean, if that was the plan, I mean, I know that Burton wanted to do Billy D. Williams as Two-Face, but I didn't know he was forced to dump him in the second one. So I don't know why they would be opposed to having Billy D. be Two-Face if they're also wanting Marlon Wayans to go on to be Robin. That's a bit odd. Same thing with what's his name? Coolio, who they said played Scarecrow in Batman and Robin for his one cameo scene, who would have played him in the next movie, which shows you that they weren't really trying very hard when it came to casting the later characters. Rest in peace, Coolio.
I did hear they wanted Robin, but then Burton didn't.
Tom says, originally, Paul Rubens was not the first choice to play the Penguin's father. They wanted Burgess Meredith to play him, but he was ill at the time, and it prevented him from doing it. Oh, I did not know that. That would have been quite neat, actually.
And Burgess Meredith was the original Penguin?
Yeah, he was the Penguin in the TV series in Batman 66. Or in the movie and the TV show, I should say. Tom says, the scope of the film was huge. Tim Burton took up 50% of the Warner Brothers lot with Gotham City set. Yeah, he did. So Anton Furst was the production designer on the first one, and he made it look very German expressionist. And like I said, it looked kind of more like, to me, it was more obvious that it was a set. Sadly, he committed suicide before this movie came along. And so they got Aaron Welch to do it this time. And it kind of looks to me like a bit more like a real city merged with some of the expressionism. So it's kind of like, like some of the designs of Shrek's buildings remind me of Metropolis, and just that kind of Art Deco type look to it.
It was apparently designed specifically after that.
Right, yeah. Yeah, so that was, I think they did a good job on the sets here too. So yeah, they did take up a ton of space. Milton says, I used to watch this as a child, like whenever it was on TV, which is Dan, me every year. Wow, they let us watch this in boarding school.
Exactly the way I experienced Batman Returns is just catching it on TV and just watching it to the end, catching different parts at different times.
Phil says, there's rumors that Lee Merriweather, who was Catwoman in Batman 66, was the voice of Selina's mom, but that was never confirmed.
Huh.
That's right, because she leaves a message on the machine.
Her mom is so
that's a good
rude.
question. It could be true. Witch King says, okay, 5 seconds, do something. Maybe he was just shocked. Stop picking on Batman.
That was when he didn't rescue the Ice Queen fast enough for your liking.
Well, I mean, it's not that he didn't do it fast enough. It's that he didn't do it, period. He just kind of watched.
That is true.
Phil says, I've always loved the look of Gotham City in Burton's films. The Nolan ones didn't look very well comic book style. You could tell it was locations of Pittsburgh to Chicago. Well, yeah, because that was more of the point in the Nolan films, is they were trying to make it feel real and in the real world, and making everything more hyper real, whereas these were more deliberately artsy and, again, German expressionism, as we mentioned with the sets in the two movies, and the fact that they have now named characters and designed them after German expressionist films in the sequel. So yeah, that's definitely, it does give it extra character for sure, and there was definitely a carryover into the comics after these two films.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing is, like, with the set designs for both 89 and Returns, is that it still is believable when you get to the Schumacher ones, and there are just like weird highways and bridges going between buildings and giant atlases and like the statues, and it's just like, nope, this place isn't real. This is animated.
Phil says this year's The Batman also was a great representation of Gotham City. Yeah, because it feels more. I mean, it's literally dark because so much of the movie takes place at night, and it doesn't have that German expressionist feel, but because it does feel dark and seedy, like I'd find it believable that you'd find somebody like Batman lurking around a place like that. But yeah, we'll get to that when we see that film. Tom says Michael Keaton has never watched the completed film. He only took the role again because he needed the money for a real estate deal. I heard about that.
Really?
Yeah, I heard that he did only take it for the money. But like you said, like he had to be reassured that don't worry, it's not a sequel. It's like a standalone thing. And that he doesn't watch his movies either. He says he's never seen any of the other Batman movies. He didn't even watch the full Spider-Man Homecoming that he was in.
Well, he wanted to watch 30 minutes of it. He wasn't in it for that much of the movie.
Yeah. So kind of like he doesn't really watch his own films. Yeah, Phil says a lot of actors don't like to watch their. Yeah, that's true. Phil also says, I'm just glad Michael Keaton gets to play Batman again, even if it's the Flash. Too bad about Batgirl, though. Stupid Warner Brothers. Well,
that's a whole other thing.
That's a whole other thing. And if rumors and reports are being believed, that would not going to be a good movie. But that's neither here nor there. So moving on, Tom says, oh my, some of the things that almost happened in this movie. Penguin and Catwoman are going to search for treasure, and Max Strucker is going to be discovered to be the Penguin's older brother.
Oh, no.
Oh, wow.
I don't know where you're getting your information, Tom, but okay.
No, I heard the same information about that, but probably from the same place he's heard it.
What, is everybody just reading IMDb today?
I did. I really love this movie, so I wanted to know a few things.
No, fair enough. I did too. I should have checked. I should have gone to the Wikipedia.
That's how I knew the Penguin wanted to make, freeze over the city, which would have been really cute for all the penguins.
It would have been.
True. Milton says, next political speaker I have anywhere near my time, I'm bringing a whole bag of tomatoes. I mean, grocery bag of tomatoes.
That makes sense.
Phil is digging my enthusiasm about this one. Thank you, Phil.
You are. We're all super jazzed about this one. This is great.
Milton says, no, Bruce killed her. Nobody can know about Batman except Alfred.
Yeah.
Like that running joke about how did Batman build the Batcave? Did he have to kill all the construction workers who built the Batcave?
Well, especially this Batman who has no compunction on the murder.
Yeah, that's the only scene I don't like in this movie is when he
blows up the guy.
When he blows up that guy, Batman wouldn't have done that. But that's it.
Yeah. Well, the 40s Batman would have, but in one case he actually kicked a guy into a vat of acid, but that was a long time ago.
That guy. I forgot about that.
Phil says, I thought this one was more Burton than Batman 89. Definitely, because Batman 89 was more about, can we make this for an audience? Like, will they accept this version after the Superman films kind of went downhill rapidly with 3 and 4? And so they didn't give him as much freedom. But once Batman 89 was successful financially and critically, they gave him more free reign to do what he wanted with this one. And to me, that benefits it because I can imagine what changes the studio may have tried to make, and it wouldn't have been good. So you definitely see that this is a much more personal film for Burton, whereas Burton himself kind of says, yeah, Batman 89 wasn't so much a great movie as it was a great, like a pop cultural event. It was more of a cultural event than it was a movie, whereas this, he says, he's much more a fan of this one. So I agree with that. Tom says, people who could have played the Penguin: Marlon Brando, Dustin Hoffman, Christopher Lloyd, John Candy, Alan Rickman, Joe Pesci, and this one blows my mind, Dean Martin. Yeah, they were looking at everybody for this. I think they cast the right guy, though.
Me too.
Oh, yeah, and in one of the trivia moments, it was because he's had a long-standing friendship with Jack Nicholson, and Jack Nicholson said, "Oh, you want money? You should be in a Batman movie."
Yes,
yeah, and he had
advice.
Yeah, and he did have Nicholson's backing for it too, saying, "No, you should get the veto for this," because which is great. I love how they kind of speak up for the genre, which is really nice to hear, especially somebody like Jack Nicholson doing that.
Absolutely.
Phil says, I remember that Sean Young and Sigourney Weaver and Sharon Stone were up for the Catwoman also. Oh my God. You guys have heard the crazy Sean Young story about this, right?
Yes.
Where she dressed up in costume, or she auditioned, and Tim Burton wasn't going to cast her, so she dressed up in costume and got on the lot, and he went to hide in like a bathroom or something to get away from her.
Yeah. Oh, and then she went on the Joan Rivers show, dressed up as Catwoman, saying, "I want to be Catwoman," and so she did it publicly. It was not a good time for her. She was cast as Vicky Vale, but then she broke her leg.
And she went on Letterman and said the whole thing that, I'm going to get you, Tim Burton. You should cast. I'm like, she is completely insane. Like, what the, Yeah. But yeah, it's like, what do you know? It's not that far fetched after all. But
but I thought it was Annette Bening who was cast initially, and then she got pregnant.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah, and that was that. Tom says Jodie Foster was going to do it, and she dropped out to do another movie. I didn't know that.
I hadn't heard of that.
Me neither.
And Phil says, wasn't it Silence of the Lambs?
That
Tom
I was
says,
going to say
no,
it would have been weird if it was Silence of the Lambs.
It was Little
Tom
Man
says,
Tate.
no, I haven't heard of Little Man Tate, but yeah, it couldn't have been Silence of the Lambs. That was February 91. And Phil says, her first directorial effort. Okay, that makes sense to leave that for, to do that. Direct a movie. Phil gives it 8.5 8.5 batarangs.
8.5 batarangs, buddy.
Oh yeah, which he does clarify right here.
There we go. Thank you so much, sir.
Tom says, Cat has a lot in common with DeVito's Penguin. Do you live in an abandoned ice zoo? No, but I have a lot in common, and I'm not going to tell you all the specifics, but I love this character for a lot of those reasons. Phil says, I agree with Cat. I do love DeVito as the Penguin. He was the flawed villain whose actions were justified. Well, I wouldn't say his actions were justified. His anger was, his resentment towards his parents was justified, but that was about it.
Yes. Not justified, but properly motivated.
Yeah, properly motivated. You can understand where he's coming from, even if it isn't fully justified, coming from a fully justified place for that. Tom says, some things in this film that were left were added to Batman Forever. That's true.
Well, they've been carrying over Robin for both these movies, weren't they? Like, they definitely were going to introduce him in the first one. I didn't know if they were going to do it in the second one, but every time they brought it up, it was always how are we going to incorporate Robin?
They were, and that's why one of the toy lines included a Robin.
Oh, really? Cool. Hang on a second.
Phil says, Batman 66 is on HBO Max, and I do believe in 4K too. Well, thank you for telling me that, because I was wondering where I wasn't sure if it would have been on HBO because it was I know the show was through NBC, so that's where I'll be watching, because I do not own Batman 66. Thank you for that information. And if it is in 4K, I'd be very surprised that got a 4K transfer. Not that it doesn't deserve one. I mean, it's Batman, so why not? But that's cool. Tom says that is very true. That did happen with the Batmobile. Yes, he's talking about the fact that Adam West took out the Batmobile to go trick or treating, which is just amazing. And I learned that in the Batmobile documentary that was on the Dark Knight Rises bonus features. Let's see. Tom says, yes, the plan was going to be Marlon Wayans as Robin, but the Tim Drake Robin. So they bought out Wayans' contract and hired Chris O'Donnell for Robin. Okay, I guess they did get that pretty far, but I do recall reading about that, so I guess that is true. They did already have contracts in place, but then all that changed once they decided to bring on Schumacher and not Burton, because the financial reception was weak enough for this movie, and there was enough controversy. The studio received hundreds of complaint letters from parents and other people like that, so they're like, I guess we can't really let Burton, which is kind of lame, because Burton has done other family-friendly movies. They could just tell him, hey, maybe not so dark next time, unless they thought his name would not be trusted.
Well, I think they offered him Batman Forever, and he said no. He dropped down to being a producer on it, an executive producer, I think. And when he said that he wasn't going to direct it, that's when Michael Keaton said, well, I'm not going to play it. And then we get into the new Batman. But yeah, Marlon Wayans was paid. He was paid to be Robin, and never had to. So
interesting. So Phil says, I think Joe would appreciate Batman 66. Yes, it's silly and campy, but then again, it was the 60s. You can't help but admire it.
I saw a few episodes of the TV show and enjoyed it, so I could try the movie.
Oh, I broke it.
I will definitely watch the movie before you guys review it, and I'll be in the chat for that.
Oh, wow. There's an audio commentary by Adam West and Burt Ward.
Nice.
Like I'm doing that tonight.
Captain Infinity sends us a watermelon.
Hi,
Thank you,
Captain.
thank you.
He says, Sean Young was good enough to appear on our show, kinda. And he said, she was good enough to give us her take on whether Deckard's a replicant.
Oh, was that through Cameo or something?
Yeah, I'd like to learn more, Captain Infinity. If you're holding back Sean Young on me, and if I forgot, then shame on my synapses. But yeah, that's super cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for everybody for being here. I'm glad that you could celebrate our Batman Christmas special with a Batman Christmas movie. Now I'm either going to watch an audio commentary with Adam West and Burt Ward, or I'm going to play Arkham Origins, because that takes place at Christmas as well.
Yeah, it does.
Going through the Batman this is so much fun. I am looking forward to continuing through, as we mentioned before, checking out Batman 66 next, and the one, because I think in every so far in Martinis, Gadgets and Guns, Bullets, Blades and Babes, and now Cowls, Crusaders and Capes.
Capes, Crusaders.
That's what it's called. And one of them, there's always one that I haven't seen. And so I'm looking forward to getting to The Batman, which I still haven't seen, and I'm holding off until we get there. But are we gonna go next week, or did you want to take a week off for the holiday?
Oh, I should be free. It's the 28th isn't a holiday, so
fair enough.
Yeah. Which
all right.
See, for each of these series, there's one you didn't see. Which one from Martinis, Gadgets and Guns have you not seen?
I think it was all the way through Casino Royale.
Like the original, one of the unofficial ones? Oh, okay.
Yeah, like the spoof.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Yeah. I was gonna say, really? Yeah. So yeah, we should be back next week with Batman 66.
Perfect. And thank you so much to Anti-Derivative Jill, who I'm wondering. Yeah. Oh, there she is.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much for being here. Thanks for sharing in your enthusiasm for Batman Returns. Merry Christmas. And
Merry Christmas. Yes,
Merry Christmas.
What's going on with you on the internet? Where can people find you? Tell us your stuff.
Well, this was actually my last scheduled live stream for the year, but I'll be hanging around for the holidays, just having fun wherever I can. And next year on the 2nd, I'll be at Pop Culture Curators channel talking about the animated series, the season 2. We're starting off season 2, The Pirates of Orion.
Nice.
And on Tuesday is going to be a big episode on my channel talking about the original series. We're going to talk about Arena.
Yeah.
One of my favorite Star Trek episodes, possibly my second favorite. I'm not sure. It's just, I love it a lot. Then on Thursdays, I come here to talk about Quantum Leap.
Yes.
And sometimes I have a Friday show. And after this live stream, I want everybody to head over to Doomcock's channel for Pop Culture Breakdown. They're talking about Christmas movies and stuff right now too.
Nice. Awesome and super faboo. All right. So I guess that will be the show. And Kat, I never thanked you.
Thank you, Scott.
Oh, no, you didn't. You did it wrong.
Oh,
you're doing the Batman thing again, aren't you?
So okay, we'll go. Okay, I never got to thank you.
And you'll never have. No, the line is, and I never said thank you. That's why I didn't get it. If you said, the line is, I never said thank you.
Okay, this is what happens when I don't show up to rehearsal. I never said thank you.
And you'll never have to.
Night, everybody.